What's up, YouTube? You checking out the Frequent Flyer, and this is my quick review of the Scarlet Minivet by Wingsland, courtesy of DBPower. And this is it here. This thing is approaching phantom size, and it's a aerial photography, videography quad, video quad here. And this thing works pretty well. It comes with a 3-axis gimbal here, this little bulbous thing here. And I just have one negative to say about the camera here. Sometimes this gimbal tends to get stuck before you take off. You have to sort of straighten it out, make sure it's straight, because sometimes if it's all the way to the side and you take off, it won't straighten itself out. But for the most part, other than that, that's just a little small quirk with it. It works really well in the air. I'm hearing that there's a lot of updates that you can do to this thing to improve the gimbal. For instance, I only had control of up and down panning of the gimbal and not left to right. And there's supposed to be a fix or whatnot that I saw on Banggood website. And I'm just reluctant to install updates and stuff like that on these quads, because that really seems like it really interferes with the functionality and the way that it flies. And it's a lot of things you have to calibrate and get resituated, and it's just a pain. So I really try not to upgrade these things or update firmware if I really don't have to. And so you can just pan left and right by just doing yaw. And I'm actually not sure that you're supposed to initially be able to control the gimbal left and right, but I'm hearing that you can when you do the update onto the gimbal. Needless to say, I didn't do any updates to it. I'm just going by the way it came to me stock. You can only control the gimbal up and down movement, and the gimbal works really nice though. The quad, you can see the camera gets the 2 front arms in view when you pan it all the way up, or you pan it straight forward. You're going to see these 2 arms here. If you pan down slightly, you won't see the arms, but when you do see the arms in the picture, you can just see how the aircraft is moving back and forth, leaning and tilting, and you really wouldn't notice if you didn't see the arms there, because the video footage is stabilized very well. You hardly see any movement at all. Really nice working gimbal. This thing has a few nice features with the GPS. It has a point of interest feature on it, where you select the point of interest, whichever way you're facing this quad towards. If you hit that point of interest switch, then it'll circle around the point of interest, keeping the camera always facing that point of interest. So it'll keep it in radius and do a circle around it. So that's pretty awesome that it has that feature. And it has a return to home feature that works pretty well. I think all GPS camera quads have that though. But the GPS return to home works really well. The GPS lock is solid. The only thing I would say about that is your menu. This transmitter doesn't have a screen. It actually came with a little FPV monitor, and this thing is really tiny, the FPV monitor. And I know it's not an FPV quad, and you probably would say, well, it's just to line up shots for video and stuff like that. And that would be fine if the on-screen menus didn't exist. The menus and everything for this quad, like the video settings and camera settings and all of that stuff, it shows up on the OSD display. It does have telemetry and OSD, but it shows up on the monitor here. You can go through the menus of the video and all of that stuff, the video settings, like the resolution and all of that, and what the switches do, and you can change all of that stuff around, but the menus show up on screen. So if you can just imagine, you're going to have this tiny screen with menus on it, and you have an aircraft up in the air that you're looking at. Well, it does do altitude. It does have altitude hold and GPS functionality, so it will stay put while you're looking at it. But just think about that. You're going to be looking and navigating through menus on this little tiny screen. But happy to say, when you add a larger screen, as I did here, the OSD information, all of it still comes through the FPV feed onto the monitor. So that's awesome. A lot of quads don't do that. The Hubsan, I know one didn't do that. If you use an outside monitor, you won't get any of the telemetry or anything. Well, this thing relays all the telemetry to the whole FPV feed, so you can see how many satellites you're locked onto. You can see the battery of the quad and all, and it's just awesome. I think that's awesome. I hear that you can get this also with a larger screen too, but mine came with this smaller screen, little FPV screen, and it works though. The functionality and everything works with the OSD and the on-screen menus. You navigate the menu. It does have a joystick on the back here, so you can control the gimbal with the joystick here on the back, and you actually navigate the on-screen menu there. And this button here is like on the transmitter, it's like a trainer switch. You see it snaps back, so you use that to actually select the menu that you're on. So you navigate it with the joystick on the back, and then you hit that switch there to select whatever menu and select options. And so the R1 button here, if you flick it up, that's the video. If you flick it down, that's the photo capture. And when you go to the middle, it'll give you the options for that. So if you wanted to get to like the video options and settings, you would click up to go to video, and then click back to the menu to go to the option, to the middle to go to the menu for the options and stuff. And same for photo, you would click it down to photos, and then click it back to the middle to go to the menus on the screen for the photo capture settings and stuff. And so this L1 switch here, oh, this is the R2 switch also, just to let you guys know. And this is the R1 switch. And the L2 switch in the middle is normal smooth flight mode. You can't turn off GPS or altitude hold, but it allows you to fly faster in the middle here on the L1, which is called smooth flight mode. But then when you click it up, it puts the quad in photography mode, and so you can't fly as fast, but it's still fast on all modes with this thing. But it does make it a little more stable. The yaws a tiny bit slower and stuff like that, so it's in photography mode there. And if you flick L1 all the way to the bottom, then it's in return to home, so it'll try to return to home. Now the L2 button here, if you flick it all the way up, it's in headless mode. If you put it to the middle here, it's in the normal mode. And when you flick it down, it's in the point of interest mode, where you circle around the point of interest that you select. Now, I found that the headless mode acts a little weird. I guess it's just used to be used for if you lose orientation of it and you're going to lose the craft, and you switch the heading lock on, and forward would always be away from you, up on the transmitter, and back would always be back towards you. So the heading lock does work well. However, you can't play around with it. It's not to play around with, like for instance with the toy quads. When you put them in headless mode, most of the time people like to just apply yaw and just fly around that way. This thing doesn't work well when you do it that way. When you put it in headless mode, it's just forward and back and left and right, and it'll stay stable. When you try to yaw, all types of weird things happen with it. When you try to apply yaw and play around with it that way, it gets really twitchy. So I wouldn't recommend that. It has a true headless mode. The headless mode is just to get you out of trouble, I guess, with this one. Whereas with the toy quads, headless mode really wouldn't get you out of trouble because it doesn't have GPS or anything, and so it's skewed a lot. And so we just play around with the headless mode, applying yaw and flying it around, but not with this one. The transmitter takes 6 batteries, 6 AA batteries, and you have to have the screen working actually to see how many GPS satellites you're locked on, because it relays that information over the FPV signal. So if you lose power to your if you lose power to your FPV monitor, then you're not going to be able to see any of the options or toggle any settings or anything. So I guess that's one downside to having the settings menu and all being relayed over the FPV signal. But for the most part, it's pretty awesome. 25-minute flight time. Somebody said that they were having problems with the batteries or whatnot. It just losing power all of a sudden. Mine's does not do that. Mine's flies all the way to the end, and when it gets low, it actually starts to beep. The transmitter beeps to let you know that the aircraft is running low on power, and then it'll just auto land. It'll auto return to home or auto land. And so mine's doesn't fall out of the sky or anything crazy like that. Now the battery, let me see if I can get this battery out here with one hand. The battery is pretty nice too. You can actually check the level of battery there. Well, you probably can't see that, but not that well anyway. But these lights here light up to let you know how much battery you have. Is from 1 to 5 dots there, 5 being the highest of battery and 1 of course being the lowest of battery. So you can see I have 4 increments of battery here, and you can actually keep that on while you're flying. So every once in a while you can spin it around and look at that and see how many lights you have as far as battery. So I thought that was pretty cool. Works with charging it as well. But you do have the battery information relayed over the FPV feed as well. So that's pretty awesome. And that's all. That's just about it with the quad and the transmitter. It works really well. And it comes with an extra set of spare props. They give you a full set. It comes with this awesome rubberized USB charging cable for your phone, but this is not for your. This is for updating the firmware actually. And oh, another thing, it only comes with a quick start guide. So it doesn't tell you about all those features with the menu and all of that stuff. It just tells you just enough to get you up in the air. But you have to download the manual, the full manual, to learn how to do all the other things, and which I had to do. I will put a link in the description where you can download the full manual. And so the charger. It comes with this charging block here. They have their own proprietary charging thing here. And this light comes on and flashes red when it's charging. And well, it stays solidly lit red when it's charging. And it turns green when it's done charging. It flashes red and green when it's a problem. But for the most part, it works well. Does what it's supposed to do. And that's it. The Scarlet Minivet by Wingsland, courtesy of DBPower. Pretty awesome GPS camera bird. Thanks for watching.